Today we are adapting with Nick Brucker of Sparq Designs. I actually work with Nick at Sparq, so this is a privilege to be able to interview him on a personal and professional level. So Nick, kind of give me an intro on who you are and who Sparq Designs is.
Hi, I'm Nick Brucker, founder and CEO at Sparq Designs. Sparq Designs is a full-service digital marketing agency, and our lines of service include branding, design, social media, search engine optimization, video production, and web development.
Nice. So is Sparq mainly like a digital service company? Like, do you do out-of-home media or anything like that?
Sparq is primarily involved in the digital space. We don't do a ton of traditional or out-of-home media. It's something that is on our radar for the future, and we've been looking at it a lot because of consumption patterns and how consumers are streaming and watching television nowadays. But one of the things that's been important is for us to focus on our strengths and really hone in on what we're strong and good at. And so we haven't diverted too far outside of the digital space.
With that being said, how much of the company has changed over the last few months with everything that had been going on with COVID-19 and quarantine?
I think the workflow has changed, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's for the worse. We've just been able to adapt, and we've been able to change on the fly, and our work patterns have become a little bit different. But in terms of productivity and what we're able to put out, I'm still extremely satisfied with the products, and the clients are also satisfied with the work that we're putting out. It's just different. And I think, in life, you just always have to be ready for, what's coming next and how you adapt to it. But for the most part, our team has been very solid whenever it comes to just making sure that we are adapting, we're communicating effectively with one another, even though it may be different than what we're used to.
Yeah. You said you were helping your clients adapt. What was one of the ways that you were able to help the clients cope with everything that had been going on?
Yeah, and it's something that everybody was dealing with at the time, and we were all in this together. So, the important part of us being over communicating with our clients and just letting them know that we're going to be there for them in whatever ways that we possibly can from a support standpoint. So whether that means, extension of some of their terms, or us being able to help and lend a hand in terms of capturing content via Zoom, or communication was just ultimately a really important piece, because you're missing that face-to-face interaction. So making sure that they feel like they're being taken care of, and that we're there for them in whatever ways necessary, was the main thing that we wanted to make sure that they felt throughout this whole time period.
Yeah. Were your clients able to adapt as well? Not just with you and your terms, but were they able to kind of sustain through everything through COVID?
For the most part, yes. I think that certain industries were drastically affected worse than the others, and specific to hospitality or the restaurant space or entertainment. And them being able to adapt and figure out, okay, so if we can't do this, how are we going to monetize what we've created, right? So it was making sure on the hospitality and the restaurant side that delivery and takeout were primary options for them, right? Making sure that they adapted to their seating arrangements and putting outdoor seating and making outdoor seating a thing for them. So I think that, everybody in this environment had to do some adapting in some way, shape, or form. But that's what allows us to ultimately grow as well, as us being able to see what's in front of us, make change, and adopt a new strategy to ensure success.
Yeah. Is that also something that you had to do internally with your own employees and your own company?
Yes. Yeah. I think one of the things that we appreciate a lot at Sparq is that we are very collaborative, and we communicate, and we enjoy each other's company. And so when that's missed, I think that it does affect the way that we work with one another, but at the same time, we've tried to put some things in place, especially you with, happy hours or little picnics and things that we can get together outside of the office and keep our social distance, of course. But I think that us being able to infuse some of those little elements just allowed the team to digest it better or differently. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
because there's a lot of uncertainty and nobody knew how to respond or react or how to communicate because it was new. But I think that this is going to establish a new way to work and a different type of workflow for the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, I know what it was like for me in terms of communication during this period, like with everyone else. I know that sometimes it got a little hard to get time on people's schedules. What do you, from your perspective, what do you think communication was like for you and the employees and clients together at Sparq during quarantine?
I think it was different. Um, I think it was different because it was change. And sometimes people don't like change. And it was outside of the norm of what we were used to in the past. But I think that people, once you got acclimated and it became a habit of, okay, we're doing a lot more Zoom calls now, we're working from home, and this is what everybody's having to deal with. One of the things that was a nice add was just some of those little exciting, fun little events that we put in place because you still kind of got that collaboration with the team. You got some laughs. We were able to do the Sparky Awards. We were able to do a picnic. We were able to do some after hours happy hours virtually, and it just made it more fun again. And it was a different style of communication. So, um, I was happy about that. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely different. And I would say, I think that people are also now working harder than before because we have more time, as opposed to, when you go to meetings, you're traveling and then you're meeting and then you're traveling back and then you're kind of like offloading from the meeting. Whereas now it's kind of like you can handle things like boom, boom, boom. You go from meeting to meeting because you hang up one Zoom call, you go into another Zoom room and things like that. Like, do you see that the company is more productive now?
We've become more efficient because if you think about it, people are spending, depending on where you're coming from, you're spending an hour and a half to 2 hours a day in the car or in traffic or at lunch or taking um, just like mingling, and there's value to that as well. There's value to the internal office makeup and like talking and just being around people. But I do think from a productivity level, we've become more efficient because we are saving more time from travel, from going out to lunch, which takes an hour. There's a lot of different elements that we are now saving, and that becomes working hours. And so I think if you're looking in this from the last few months, I think we've actually become more efficient in terms of like managing our time and like our bandwidth and our working hours are maximized a little bit as well. So it's different, but I do think that we have become a little bit more efficient because there's some of that wasted time that is no longer a thing right now.
Yeah. What would you say the biggest challenge was?
I think the biggest challenge throughout this whole environment was the fact that we pride ourselves a lot on our culture and our people, and we enjoy hanging out with one another. And I think missing that time was the biggest challenge to me. When you have a team and you have an environment that you do enjoy going into every day, and you do enjoy working with those people every day, it's good to spend time with them. And so it's been a challenge not having that luxury, but hopefully in the future, we'll be able to get that back.
Yeah. Um, I know that not a lot of companies can say this, but we were able to bring on people during all of this. But how has the hiring process changed? You know, knowing that the people that are coming in are probably going to be virtual for a while, probably not going to meet the team physically, be onboarded physically. Like, how has the hiring process itself just adjusted or adapted, I guess?
I think it puts a lot more emphasis on their portfolio and their over the phone skills or their virtual interviewing skills, because you can't really get a true pulse of the individual in person at this point. So I just think it puts a lot more emphasis on first impressions and their portfolio and what they've done. And it's about that intuition of like, does this person feel like they're a good fit? Do they check the boxes in terms of culture fit? Do they have the ability to pull off what we're vetting them for from a hiring standpoint? And how well can they effectively communicate with us virtually? So, I mean, if they're client facing, that's a very good indication of how they'll do. And I would just say again, it's different. It's all about being able to pivot and being agile to the environment and the circumstances, because none of us were prepped for this style of the workplace and this style of the environment itself as a world. So I think it's about adapting.
Yep. So I know that we have a pretty unique story in terms of COVID. We went through without losing employees, and we actually, brought people on, and we're able to make up in some areas where we have lost. Why do you think that we were able to get over that hump really well?
Well, I think going into it, Jim and I had some conversations, and the one thing that we did not want to do throughout the entire shutdown was having to furlough or let any of the employees go. And we decided that, if anybody was going to make sacrifices first, it was going to be him and I. And that's just, we wanted to take a different approach from what everybody else was doing, because, we see things and we approach situations a little bit differently. So, you know, going in with that goal in our minds to say, you know what, we're not going to let people go. We're going to battle this, and we're going to come out stronger than we did before. And it's just kind of committing to that plan and not being fearful of the circumstances around you that we know that we can't control. And I think the whole perspective of marketing, historically, marketing was always something that was cut first, right? It was always something, if times are tough, we're going to cut marketing. Personally, I think that paradigm has shifted a little bit. I think that there's so much value placed in the digital landscape. And if you're very good at what you do, I don't think that clients are going to be as easy to cut their marketing expense or their marketing budget as maybe they once did before. So I don't think we are in an industry or a category, or maybe it's just how Sparq is positioned, comparable to other agencies or other companies, but we didn't feel that, right? And I thought that would be the case, and fortunately we were right. But I just think that the ability for us to stick to a plan and just trust in ourselves and know that we're going to come out of this strong is exactly what we wanted to do. And fortunately for us, that's how everything played out. So I'm happy about that. It's great.
Yeah, it's so awesome. So from a personal standpoint, what are some of the positives that have come out of this for you?
Well, I've had a lot more time without like the travel and the driving to meetings, where I've used that time to invest it into building other facets of Sparq and some other ventures that I got involved in throughout the whole entire quarantine period. So it's opened up a lot of opportunity for me. And maybe it's just the fact that I've been introduced to more people, and I've had a lot more conversations with others in different categories that I wasn't as involved with before. But it's for me, it's been a good thing because I've really got to hone in on and focus on the things that I enjoy doing, things that I enjoy building, and meeting new people and building and establishing new relationships. So that's been a blessing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you are someone who just has to keep like connecting with people. What was the most annoying part about working from home?
Everybody's saying, oops, sorry, I'm on mute. And it just becomes something like, how, on all of our calls, the same people are always on mute. I mean, I don't really get too annoyed by things, but I think, it's harder. Other than that, I think the one thing is it's harder to focus on a Zoom call than it is in an in-person meeting. It's easier to get distracted because your browser tabs up, and I think that part has been, maybe it's personal to me, but like I know that I'm more distracted on a Zoom call than I am in an in-person meeting, and it's less of a focused, concentrated effort on what's being discussed.
Yeah. I find myself like getting up more. Like if I just turn off the camera and I just like get on my headphones, I'll like go and like make lunch or take the dogs out or do something like that. And then I'm like, oh crap, like I'm supposed to be
Present.
contributing to this. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you wouldn't go and make lunch during an in-person client interview. So yeah, I get it. But that is the thing that I would say is probably the most annoying.
Yeah. What is in your opinion, you talked about connecting with people and being part of new ventures and things like that, but what is the best part about working from home?
I would say the best part about working from home for me is that I feel like I've bought more time. You know, for me, I appreciate like the time that I have, and I hate wasting time or feeling like I'm not being productive. So to me, I feel like I've bought an extra 2 hours a day. I'm still able to get all of the things that I can done and more. So I think that would be the thing that I appreciate most about working from home.
Yeah. And then this is my last question. I saved the best for last, but will there be a new normal, and what do you think that looks like?
That's a good question. I can answer it this way. I don't think that this is going to go away for a little while. Maybe 2021, but I think 2020 we're pretty much going to be in this pseudo quarantine, social distancing phase. Hopefully that doesn't last forever. I do think that our comfort level as a society when it comes to Zoom and virtual calls is going to be something that will extend throughout the near future. But I don't know necessarily if this, like what we've been used to, is the new normal. I think it's ebbs and flows, and it's a phase thing. I think that it will last for a greater period of time. But I hope that we can get back to some sort of normality and get people back to doing the things that they enjoy doing. But at the same time, what I would say is I think that people will start to realize that some of the efficiencies that we've been able to develop throughout this process, those should stay if they make sense to the business and the nature of the business that you're in.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Nick. Is there anything else that you would like to add or plug before we sign off?
No, I thank you for having me be a part of it. I hope everything that I said was good and valuable for the people that are listening, and I wouldn't have wanted to be interviewed by anybody else but you. So thanks.
Thanks, Nick. This is so exciting. I had so much fun.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.